You've tried unfollowing people, making those gratitude lists, and staying in your own lane, and you still compare yourself to others. So, what gives? You can't stop comparing because you were never supposed to. And comparison isn't a bad habit you can just decide to quit. That's the problem. It's a cognitive function, and you can't opt out of cognitive functions. Every piece of advice that tells you to just stop is working against your own brain, which is exactly why it never sticks. So today you'll learn why comparison is hardwired into you, why the standard advice fails, why some people get pulled into it kind of more painfully than others, and the specific shifts that actually make a difference. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the Relationships Made Easy podcast. You know who I am, your host, Dr. Abby Medcalf. And this comes up so much, this comparison thing. I did an episode on FOMO, fear of missing out, a long time ago. I will link to that, but we're going to get really deep into this. And I'm so sick of people getting the wrong advice around this. So I'm hoping to fix some things today. So let's talk about why your brain is wired to compare. You keep comparing yourself to others because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. And in 1954, there was a psychologist named Leon Festinger, and he developed what is called social comparison theory. Yeah, since the 50s, people. It's been a while. And what he found was that human beings can't actually define themselves independently. We can only understand who we are in relation to other people. So this isn't a modern problem created by TikTok or Instagram or something. It's ancient. Your ancestors' survival depended on knowing where they stood in the group, whether they had enough, whether they were safe, whether they needed to work harder to stay connected and be protected. Comparison, really think about it, was a critical survival tool long before social media existed. And I'm not saying that social media hasn't exploited that hardwiring. Of course it has. Minds much smarter than me are figuring out how to keep you on media platforms. And I am a smarty pants, but I know they're smarter. But this has been a problem, or this has been around a long time. So what neuroscience has added since Festinger's work is equally important, I think. So when you perceive a gap between yourself and someone else, particularly someone you see as similar to you, your brain registers that as a threat, okay? So the same neural circuits that fire when you're in physical danger also activate when you're scrolling through someone's highlight reel and feeling like you don't measure up. That tight, sinking feeling in your chest or in your stomach when a friend mentions her promotion, or you see someone your age like buying their dream house on social media, that's not something to be ashamed of, okay? That feeling is not to be ashamed of. It's your threat detection system doing its job, okay? Research also shows that we compare ourselves most intensely to people we see as similar, again, to ourselves in some meaningful way. So this could be someone who's really famous, but there's something that we sort of compare in a meaningful way. You're far more likely to feel destabilized by a colleague at your same level landing a big client than by a celebrity doing the same thing. Do you know what I mean? So I do want to say that. So, but if there's a meaningful connection with a celebrity, you'll have that too. The closer the comparison feels is really what I want to say, the louder the signal. And it's really why comparison can feel just so damn relentless in your immediate circle, at work, in your neighborhood, on your social media, because on social media, that's where algorithms are specifically designed to serve you content from people whose lives look just adjacent enough to yours to sting. How do you like that? And by the way, every time I say in the research and all that, when this is for my new people, there's always new people. Every link, when I'm going to have an amazing free download for today. I have an incredible Therapy to Go bundle for today. All those things, any downloads, any research, anything I mentioned, past episodes, everything is linked below the video if you're watching on YouTube. And on my website, abbymedcalf.com, you can just go to this episode. It's all there. And I write a full blog for every episode. And I like to tell people that because it's not a transcript. I spend time writing this blog because I know a lot of you will want to go, but you don't have time maybe to listen to the podcast again, but there was some notes you wanted to take or some things you wanted to remember that I said. I write a full blog. They're really good. I'm very proud of them on the website. You can just go over there. You can copy and paste. You can do whatever your little heart desires. Or maybe you have someone you think should listen to this, but they won't listen to a podcast, but they'll read a blog, 10 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever a blog is, right, to read. Send them over there. Okay. So why the standard advice doesn't work. And here's what you've probably been told. Unfollow anyone who makes you feel bad. Practice gratitude. Focus on your own path, your own life. And again, none of that obviously is wrong. Okay. But it doesn't work as a solution because, as I said earlier, comparison isn't a habit. It's a cognitive function. And you can't opt out of it any more than you can opt out of forming memories or making a prediction or anything else your brain does. Telling yourself to just stop is like telling yourself to stop breathing when you're anxious. I mean, the instruction makes no contact with what's actually happening, and that's the problem. We know from, again, an abundance of research that gratitude practices have really genuine benefits for well-being. And of course, I recommend them. But gratitude doesn't switch off your threat detection system exactly. You can feel genuinely grateful for your life and still feel a painful lurch when someone your age announces they've paid off their mortgage. Both things are true at the same time. And that's not a failure of your gratitude practice. That's just how your brain is built. And I'm thinking of the mortgage thing because I had a client recently and this came up. And so I was explaining all this to him. He had somebody he knew who he's in his circle, one of his old college buddies who paid off his mortgage already. And he's just like, what am I doing? It's like, ugh. So, okay, so let me get back to why other advice fails. The other thing I hear a lot is, compare yourself only to your past self, right? Like the only one you should be comparing yourself to is your past self. That advice really runs into the same wall I'm talking about. It sounds clean and logical, but your nervous system isn't interested in logic when it's been activated. And unfollowing people on social media it helps, but it only helps at kind of the margins because the comparison doesn't live in your phone. It lives in your brain. So you'll find plenty of material at your kids' school pickup or your family dinner table without any help from your social media feed, okay? Having said that, I do suggest getting rid of your social media feed. I'm just telling you, when there's things in there that really make you crazy. There's people I compare myself. I do sometimes. Mel Robbins makes me crazy. You all know that. I've gone back and forth. Am I jealous? What is it? I think she's a grifter. I'm just going to say that out loud. Like many other people have said, I'm not the only one. I mean, that woman, it's horrible. I don't even know what she's selling now. She's a lawyer. I get angry because I think it demeans my profession. And so I see someone so huge and I'm like, oh, but then, and I'll start to compare and I'm like, don't compare. You're completely different people. She's a lawyer. She's doing something completely different than you are. And then, by the way, I really, you know what? I pray a lot for Mel Robbins. I pray for her to kind of be a little different. But I also I do try to remember this. I think a lot of people really are helped by her. And maybe one of you, somebody listening right now has been helped by her. So I like, if they're helped, great. It's just a lot of people are hurt also with this sort of, anyway, I'm not going to get into that. But so that's why I try to focus on. I really do when I start the comparison thing and like, oh my God, what is with this woman? And I really I've never wanted to be famous. I want to be well known and respected in my field. I don't want the microscope that fame comes with, even a little. So no thanks. So, I try to do my thing and we are worldwide. This podcast is in 190 something countries right now. And I love that. And thank you. But I also love that I have some, if I'm walking down the street, people recognize me sometimes, but most of the time I have a lot of anonymity and I can just be in my life and be normal. And it feels really good. But yeah, sometimes I compare. I do it. I'm with you. It's really hard not to. So I admit, like on my feeds, she's blocked. Like I can't see her. I don't go, as many of you know, I'm not really on social media very much, but when I am on, I just don't want to see it. I don't want to look. The president and all his stuff is blocked too. There's things I don't want to see because they upset me. So better to just not have to see it, right? So I will say there's something to it. You can't leave it there and then wonder why you won't keep comparing. And that's the reason these strategies feel so exhausting, is that they really require constant effort to suppress something your brain will just keep generating over and over. You're fighting your own wiring. And when it doesn't work, which it won't, at least not fully, you think something's wrong with you, but nothing is wrong with you. The strategy is just aimed at the wrong target. Okay. So why do some people get stuck in comparison more than others? And again, as I'm saying this, like I've done all the work so that I don't do this a lot, but even I get caught in it. But there's some people who are just, and you might know them or you might be this person yourself who really get hung, right? So if it's universal, why does it seem to consume some people far more than others, right? And this is where it really does get more personal and hopefully more useful for you. I've been doing this work for 40 years, right? And what I've seen consistently is that how intensely you compare yourself to others is generally closely tied to your baseline sense of internal security. And that baseline was largely shaped in your earliest relationships, right? You know me, I talk about attachment theory quite a bit, and the research on attachment theory shows that people with anxious attachment patterns, so those who grew up with caregivers who were inconsistent, unpredictable, emotionally unavailable, neglectful, they tend to have a more sensitive threat detection system in general. Their nervous systems learned early that the environment wasn't reliably safe, so they developed a habit of scanning for signs of danger, for signs of rejection, for signs of where they stood over and over, right? And that scanning does not go away in adulthood. It finds new targets is what it does. And one of those targets is other people's lives. If you grew up not quite sure whether you were enough, whether you were loved consistently, whether your place in your family felt secure, your brain, of course, learned to keep checking. That's what it does. Comparison is in part that checking behavior showing up in grown-up form. It's your nervous system asking over and over, am I okay? Am I safe? Am I enough? Okay. And I do think that's why I have an easier time with this personally, because I have an avoidant attachment style. Now, I'd like to think pretty secure because I've worked on it all these years, but I am someone who's more avoidant. So I know, like, even when I do work with marketing people or something, and they'll always ask me, well, who's your competition? And I'm like, I don't have competition. Like, that's not how I do in the world. I really don't. Like, that's even my thing with Mel Robbins is not, I don't feel like I'm competing with her at all. My God, she's on some huge state, she's whatever. And she's doing something completely different than I do, to me. So I don't even because that's been said to me, oh, well, what about Mel Robbins? I'm like, no, but again, I don't even think necessarily in those ways. And that's one of those times that my avoidant attachment style is a fabulous thing because I'm not. But my anxious clients and so many people have more of an anxious attachment style. You guys suffer the most. You really do. And it's also why reassurance from other people doesn't help for long. You could get a compliment and feel better for an hour, but then find yourself right back in the spiral because the reassurance lands on the surface but doesn't touch the underlying question your nervous system is constantly asking, right? Feeling insecure, whether in relationships, at your job, or in life in general, and chronic comparison are driven by the same thing underneath. What looks like an ego problem or a social media problem is almost always an anxious nervous system looking for evidence that you're okay. End of. And that is so true for insecurity, right? So, there's a reason. I will tell you the most visited pages on my website, Insecurity. Yep, episode 174. I know it off the top of my head. Why you feel insecure in your relationships and how to stop, or something like that it's called. Yeah. So, and by the way, I'll link to all that, because you might be going, insecurity, that's me. Yeah. I'll link to all that on the blog and under the video. But it's also worth saying that certain life stages make comparison worse, regardless of your history. So anytime you're in a transition, starting a new job, becoming a parent, going through a divorce, hitting a milestone birthday or anniversary, your brain naturally starts looking around to benchmark where you are. That's normal. But if your baseline security, think about it, is already lower, those transitions are going to hit harder and the comparison spirals deeper, right? Yeah, that's what happens. And I will say I had a little trouble. I turned 60 last year, and 60. And that was one. And these days, especially women, there's a lot of women my age who look kind of amazing. You're looking at them going, Martha Stewart's like 80 something. They get a lot of work done. They do. And a lot of them get good work done, right? And they've been doing it for years and taking care of themselves. The people I'm seeing in, the spotlight, right? And I don't. I don't. Other than some intermittent Botox over the years, I haven't had Botox in 2 or 3 years. I don't even know how long it's been. I just don't do, I'm very interested in lasers right now, but I haven't done anything. I'm really behind the 8 ball with this, and I'm not vain enough, or I'm too vain, or I don't even know what the problem is. I just haven't, I know, for me, because of the work I do, my face has to move. It has to move. I think I have to look, natural, for lack of a better term. I think if I was talking to someone and trying to get advice or suggestions or work from someone who really looked super fake, I'd be like, what? I don't know. I judge it. See, I would judge that in my head as the receiver of that. And so I don't judge people who get work done. I need to say that right now. I admire you immensely. And people who have good work done, I'm like, oh my gosh, Anne Hathaway, hello, women my age, like Martha Stewart, I think she looks great. I mean, you can tell, and she has a hard time moving her mouth, but still. So, it's like, so, but when you're comparing yourself, to how Jennifer Lopez looks or something, I'm just like, oh my God. So I try, it happens. The benchmarks come, it gets a little harder, and, you shift back out. So 4 shifts that actually help with comparison. Let's do it. That's the question, right? So Abby, if you can't eliminate comparison, what can you do? Well, the goal shifts from stopping it to changing your relationship with it. And that happens at a few different levels. Okay. So I think I have 4 shifts for you. Shift number 1 is to treat comparison as information, not a verdict. Okay, this is the mindset change that has to come first, because without it, I have to tell you that everything else is just, it's like white knuckling, and who needs that? So when you notice that, again, that tight sinking feeling in your chest or your stomach or something, instead of trying to push it away, instead of shaming yourself for even having it, get curious. Get curious about it. What is this comparison actually pointing at? Because comparison almost always highlights something you want or something you fear losing. Okay. So the colleague's promotion makes you feel terrible, not because you begrudge her, but because it's highlighting a goal of your own that maybe feels far away or uncertain or even impossible. And that's, to me, genuinely useful information. So the question becomes what to do with it, right? That's it. And there's 2 researchers I want to mention here, Thomas Musweiler and Bettina Stahlberg. And again, I'll link to them, but they found that when you deliberately look for similarities between yourself and the person you're comparing yourself to, rather than the differences, the emotional sting drops significantly. Your brain in comparison mode is a differences-seeking machine. It's zooming in on the gap, deliberately looking for common ground. Oh, she worked really hard for that. I know what that kind of wanting feels like, something like that. It doesn't erase the feeling, but it interrupts the spiral and brings your nervous system back down, and that's what you're looking to do. Okay, it's incredibly, again, really good research on that. So do that. The shift number 2 is to learn to tell inspiration from activation. So some comparison will genuinely motivate you. It will. You see someone doing something you want to do, and it's going to light something up. Okay, that is so useful. Other comparison, it's just activates your threat system and leaves you feeling worse with no productive output at the other end. Getting better at telling those two apart and disengaging when it's purely activation, that's a skill worth developing deliberately. So after, if you're comparing yourself to someone, after that comparison moment, ask yourself, did that leave me feeling energized or depleted? That's it. Energized, or what we call enervated is the word for feeling depleted or drained, okay? Just think of that. So which way are you going when you compare? Energized comparisons, those are worth paying attention to, right? Depleted ones would be signals to redirect. There you go. Right there. I'm telling you, huge. Just check in. How am I doing when I think of this, when I look at this thing? I noticed my wonderful Gary, who does, triathlons and Spartan races and has done all these things for so many years. He compares himself a lot, but again, in a very, to me, a positive, energized direction, not in a depleting one. Because then he goes and does the things that he sees, or he'll be like, oh, that guy's big like me. I can maybe do it this way or something. I see him doing it. I hear him doing it. It's inspiring. Not inspiring me to work out, okay, or to do a triathlon. Don't think it is, but other ways. Shift number 3, work with your nervous system, not just your thoughts. You can't think your way out of a threat response. I'm going to say that again. You cannot, I don't care who you are, think your way out of a threat response. You have to regulate your way out of it. How much do I talk about regulation? Oh my gosh, so much. And that means working directly with your body, slowing your breath with a longer exhale, right, than your inhale, grounding yourself in what's physically around you right now, and building a consistent mindfulness practice. I know, I'll just shut up already. I said it. I said mindfulness again. I'm not even a little sorry about it. Not even a little. The research on what a consistent practice, mindfulness practice, does to your threat detection system over time is so compelling. Again, I'll link to a little in the blog. If you haven't started one yet, again, I have a free mindfulness starter kit. Get that. Or just start one. I don't care. It's the foundation under everything else. And in my Therapy to Go bundle today, which I'll talk about at the end, I'm going to have a list of regulators in that bundle. But again, I'll talk about that later. All right. And beyond regulation in the moment, there's also the question of what you're feeding your brain in terms of social comparison, I'll say triggers. And this is different from the just unfollow people, right, advice, because the intention behind it is different. You're not avoiding things because you can't handle them. You're making a deliberate choice about what information you want your brain processing during times when you already know your system is more activated, when you're tired, stressed, in a transition, having a hard day or a hard week, right? Again, so this other study I read, researchers found that people higher in social comparison orientation are particularly vulnerable to negative effects from social media. I know. If you're in one of those stages, or during any of those kind of windows, social media is particularly bad for you. So protecting your kind of windows, those times when you're having a hard time, you are tired, you are overwhelmed, you've had a bad week, like I said, you just turned 60, whatever. Protecting those windows is nervous system hygiene, not avoidance. So those are good times to stay off of social media or other things, right? Okay. And then shift number 4, I'm probably going to make this my last one, is to build genuine internal security. This is the longer game, and it's the most important one, but it's the longer game, right? Chronic comparison, again, at its root, is your nervous system outsourcing the question, am I okay, to other people. You're outsourcing, am I okay? You need to insource that. The lasting work is building an internal evidence base instead. That's what you want to do. So your brain has somewhere to look that isn't everybody else. You got to build it internally. And that starts with deliberately noticing your own competence, and not in a forced affirmation way, I'm good, I'm fabulous. Don't do that. But actually pausing when you handle something well and letting it register. What did you navigate this week? What do you know how to do? What have you built, survived, figured out? Your anxious brain will skip right past that material to focus on the gap. You know it. We all know it. Your job is to make it harder to skip. Okay. And I want to talk about something I talked about a long time ago here from Chade Meng Tan. They call him Meng. He wrote a few books I love, Search Inside Yourself and Joy on Demand. He was former Google employee 107, very famously. And in that book, Joy on Demand, it's so good. And he talks about, I call it thin slicing. I think he says thin slices of happiness is how he describes it. He says that basically you want to notice things that you usually put in the neutral column and consciously place them in your win column, because it builds resilience. Sorry, not resistance, the opposite. It builds resilience. So, and let me just explain that a little bit. So in other words, if your car starts in the morning, you go out, you turn on your car, it starts, you go to work, right? You don't register that at all. It's not a plus in your day. But if you had gone outside and the car hadn't started, guess what? It would be a negative in your day, which feels really unfair. So there's nothing that gets in the plus. It's just in the neutral column or the negative column. That seems unfair to me. So I would say anything like that. If you said to yourself, I'm going to stop using the snooze alarm and I'm going to start waking up every day, right, which I hope you do. Don't use the snooze. Right away, right to my alarm, and you do that, you have to take a minute and register it as a win, okay? Not as don't be fake. Not like, oh my God, I'm the best. I woke up, please, right? I'm not saying that, so don't go there. I am just saying to take a moment, and I call it savoring. And this is something from the research too. It's almost like when there's a butterscotch in your mouth and you're just kind of savoring that, or, you have a little mint or something in your mouth and you're like savoring it. I just want you to notice it for a minute. Like, hey, good job. Woke up. Good job. Good job. Little pat on the back. Yeah, that feels good. Let it sit longer. That's all you're trying to do. And again, Meng calls this like thin slices of happiness. If you're really thirsty and you get yourself something to drink and you just notice, like, oh my God, I had water right on my desk. That was good. You want to put those, because here's what happens. You go through, your life, and you're comparing, and it's negative and it's whatever you're doing. And you're not, when you take a withdrawal, when you do screw up, because when you don't get the promotion, when you do turn 60, hopefully everybody does, when that happens, you're going to take a withdrawal. And if you have no money in the bank, that's why it feels bad or worse. And that's why it's harder to bounce back from that. But when you create a lot of these, you just keep putting this money in the bank, woke up on time, took a shower, even though I was depressed and didn't want to. Oh, I've got to floss my teeth every night this week. Or 3 nights this week. I didn't do it every day, but I did it a few, whatever it was. You start putting them in. Again, not fake, real. Like, hey, good job. That was good. I know you have a hard time doing that. That's it. What happens is your brain really does remember this. It is like adding money into a bank account. And so that when you take a withdrawal, there's still money in the bank. And that's called resilience. I'm telling you, this is one of the best things you can do. Every week I have a Substack community, the One Love Collective. And every week in there, we do Wednesday on Wednesdays. And I love it. And it's so motivating. But basically, the whole community, or whoever wants to in the community, They post 2 wins from that week. And again, it should be something, that's the point. It's to help you get better at this skill because it's a hard skill. I'm telling you, you'll go through a week and be like, I don't remember any wins. That happens a lot in the beginning. And then as you do it, it's like a skill that you build. We always post, we post 2 things we've done well this past week. And then 1 thing we want to work on for the coming week because I'm not in toxic positivity, right? So yeah, did you screw something up this week or is there something you didn't pay attention to? Hey, let's look at it for the next week. Let's try to be better at it, right? So all of this also means doing the deeper work on, again, insecurity itself. Again, I can't say that enough because comparison and insecurity are 2 sides of that same coin. And if you're someone who finds that comparison follows you across maybe every area of your life and doesn't ease up even during generally good periods, that's telling you something important about what's underneath it. It really is. And again, I've spent a lot of time on this in other episodes, and I'll link to those. I also have a insecurity toolkit that you can buy if you want. I think it's $29. It's, got a ton in there. Really ways to shift your insecurity if you want. It goes deep on exactly this. It's, why some people chronically feel not enough, where that comes from, how to actually shift it from the inside out, right? All of that is in there. It's you really dealing with your insecurity is one of the most direct paths I know to quieting the comparison spiral for good. Because it's addressing the source, not just the symptom. All right, so let me wrap this up. What do I want to say? Comparison isn't a character flaw you need to overcome. And the fact that you haven't been able to stop it doesn't mean you haven't tried hard enough. It means you've been working against your own biology, your own brain. Your nervous system is doing what it was built to do, and what it needs isn't suppression. It needs understanding. And then it needs the conditions that help it feel safe enough to quiet down. That's it. That's the real work. And it's genuinely doable. Genuinely doable. All right. So, and if you don't have to spend a penny with me, as you well know. Okay. I always, I sell things. That's great. If you want to buy stuff, you can. But always, what I just gave you all those great tips. I give it away. And I have a really great free download for today. I spent a lot of time in this download. If you want to just start there, do that. I put together, it's a worksheet I'm calling it, What is this comparison really telling you? It's going to walk you through sort of identifying your own comparison triggers, what they're actually pointing at, how to redirect when the spiral starts, that kind of thing. And if you want to go deeper, I do have, as I have for every episode, a therapy to go bundle for this episode. And that would include that free download, so you don't have to download it twice. And there's also a comparison patterns inventory. Where does comparison show up in your life and how hard does it hit? There are journaling prompts to uncover your comparison beliefs, really getting to the roots of that am I enough question. There's a nervous system reset for comparison spirals. So what to do when you're with your body, when your brain won't quit comparing, like I mentioned earlier. I have an inner scorecard, which is trying to help you build the internal evidence base your brain has been outsourcing kind of thing, right? So, and then there's a self-compassion reset for, so after the spiral has passed and the self-criticism has moved in, I kind of give you a reset for what to do. All of that is $10. It's $10. And I know that a lot of people cannot afford to maybe see me, plus I have a wait list, or can't afford to go to therapy or can't figure out how to access it or whatever the things are. So I try to give you, again, like therapy to go, like something that's meaningful for $10 where you can actually do the work you need to do to make some serious shifts. But again, you can just do everything for free too, because I've got your back either way. All right. Oh, hopefully this was as helpful as I think it was or should be or can be. And hopefully you learned a lot of new information today. If no one told you this week, I love you. I love you. I'm so grateful to be here with you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening till the end. And I'll see you next week.